All right, so it's Sunday morning, day 3 of the fest, and we got a fire alarm going on. Or somebody went out the wrong door, who the heck knows. But a little bit chaotic right now.
Company A. Like an episode of New York Fire.
All right, well, the firemen are here to investigate.
See, and you guys say Beatles Fest sucks.
Is that the Paul McCartney firemen? It's like the Titanic, and he's going to be playing music as we go down. All right, well, they're leaving, so maybe that's a good sign.
We did Liverpool for 2 days. We stayed in Manchester, but we took the train to Liverpool for 2 days. Andy studied there for 2 years, so he was our own personal tour guide. And we got to meet up with old friends, meet new friends. We had the most packed 4 days, ending with seeing Paul McCartney twice. I mean, trip of a lifetime.
Right.
Drop the
Thank
mic.
you. I mean, we brought up the whole thing about the costs.
I would be in there by myself.
We brought up the whole thing about costs, which is at the same time, a couple months earlier, we had the phenomenon of Taylor Swift fans going to packages in Europe because even with airfare, it was still cheaper than here. And that's something probably. I don't know if we have enough time to go into the unfairness of the American concert system.
But
So let's
all I'm
say
gonna say is if anybody brings down Ticketmaster, it's gonna be Taylor Swift because she was really pissed off. But
The second being Beyonce.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, between the two of them, they'll make ticket prices better in the States. Yeah. It crashed, and she was really upset, and she wanted her fans to be able to see her. I know because my son bought tickets for his wife, and it was very hard for him to get them. But seeing Paul in the UK, right, was just he. First of all, the man does like 2.5 hour shows anyway, but he played for like 3 hours. Doesn't take a sip of water. You kind of think he's going to pass out from heat stroke or something. I saw him once outdoors at Wrigley Field in August, and it was so hot, and he never took a sip of water, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to die.
With Adrian Sinclair and Alan Cozen, co-authors of the McCartney Legacy. Something we've been looking forward to for a long time. It's a relationship that we've been building since the books came out as our podcast, having them both on at numerous occasions as proper episodes, live episodes, and everybody in this room knows the great work that they've done, and we're here to celebrate it today and talk a little bit about it with Venus and Mars. I mean, 2 years ago it was Red Rose Speedway 50, and we talked about it in the Historians panel yesterday. The anniversaries just keep ticking on. And now, although it's not quite the anniversary, is it, Alan, of Venus and Mars in America? Not quite, close. Yeah, in May of 75, but Venus and Mars in 50. You see all our various collecting here. Take a look at them afterwards. But we're happy to celebrate Venus and Mars, and we just got all the Venus and Mars merch that we're all proudly wearing today. Adrian, Alan, how you guys doing? How's it been so far? Yeah? Looking forward to this one? Yeah, good. I hope so.
Okay, is that it?
That's it, we're done.
That's all we needed.
No, so this is, obviously most of us here hopefully have read Legacy Volume 2. Wonderful stuff in there, especially the Nashville chapter, which was just mind-blowing. But the Venus and Mars stuff, post One Hand Clapping, looking at it now, is, especially now, it's what Paul's pushing. So if you're looking at all this stuff that's coming out now, just real quick, where after Band on the Run, after Nashville, what's your take on where Paul is at? I mean, post Nashville and all that kind of stuff. Where was Paul at going into this album?
Well, I guess he was in a pretty good place, really. The tail end of 74, they just signed the papers to dissolve Apple. although we all now know that Apple still continued to exist after that point. And all the money that they'd amassed in the accounts of Apple was still bound up. But I think he felt liberated, really. He had a band together finally. He had a great collection of songs at the end of '74. And if you read in our book, Paul actually had almost, pretty much 99% sequenced the album before they even started recording. But like I said, I think he was in a good place. But then it's funny, we were talking about some of the lyrics of some of the songs the other day, because they just brought out the Dolby Atmos mix.
Yes.
And I was re-listening to a few songs for the first time probably since we did the book. And something really struck me about Lonely Old People that I'd never really even contemplated while we were writing the book, which is we all kind of consider that song was written about Paul and Linda. Here we sit, two lonely old people. And actually, when you read the lyrics further along, it says, old people's home for the day. Nobody asked us to play. And actually, in '76, they were considering putting Jim McCartney in a care home. And it never clicked with us that they actually went to a care home, and it's there in the song. That he's reflecting on, the fact that his dad was coming into the final years of his life. So there's still things in the album that we're still learning about today.
And thinking, this we can have some sci-fi elements here. And by the way, why don't we do a sci-fi movie with, wings as the stars of it? So, like the rest of us go on vacation and holiday and unwind, but Paul doesn't. Paul is always working, and and he's happy to be always working. He's like, a classic workaholic, where I think he would be at loose ends if he wasn't working. It's probably why he's still touring so much.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Jeff Britton factor with Venus and Mars, because he was a part of very little bit of it, right, Adrian? He's only on 3 tracks on the record. Let It Go, Love and Song, and Medicine Jar?
Yeah, he played on Venus and Mars Reprise as well.
He did.
What do you say, reprise in America?
I say reprise, because I was educated the right way.
Oh.
I do. But, I mean...
Send all your hate mail.
Yeah, in fact, I think he was sacked after that session, because they said the session didn't go well.
So
it went on the record.
Well, what was the final straw with one of the tracks on Venus and Mars for Jeff, which was the exit?
Yeah, well, they were working on, was it Spirits of Ancient Egypt?
Just couldn't.
Yeah, and he couldn't get it down.
Through. So Jeff makes his exit. Now they're in New Orleans, and they don't have a drummer yet. How does Joe English enter the picture?
I suppose it depends who you ask.
Well, they had Tony Dorsey, who they had hired to do some arranging. They had hired him actually for the Nashville session, so Paul knew him, and had him also come to the New Orleans sessions. Tony Dorsey was a trombonist, and he did all the brass arrangements and also the string arrangements for this album. And when Paul decided that Jeff couldn't cut it, he went to Tony, because he was going to need a drummer from America, probably, since they were there. He said, "Who do you know?" Tony actually didn't know Joe. Jeff, when Adrian interviewed him at first, Jeff really felt that Tony is the one who sort of put the knife in, and was bringing his friend Joe in, but they weren't friends. I interviewed Tony, and so I got Tony's side of it. And basically, Joe had, come from, upstate New York, toured the U.S. with his band, I think it was Sea Level, and ended up in Georgia, where half the band decided to stay and formed a band called the Toll Dogs Orchestra. And Tony knew the Toll Dogs Orchestra. He didn't know Joe, but he knew other people in it. So he, called all the drummers he knew. Most of them either didn't pick up or weren't home or weren't available, and so he's sort of running out of people to call. And he said, the guy in the Tall Dogs Orchestra wasn't bad. Why don't I see if I can get him? So he called a friend of his in the Tall Dogs Orchestra, said, "Can you give me this guy's number?" And so invited Joe. you know, and then Joe sort of, you know, went back and forth a little like for maybe 15 minutes, you know, should I do this, what should I do? And basically talked to a percussionist in the Allman Brothers band who said, hey, if he invited me, I'd quit the Allman Brothers and go, you know, we should go. So he went, you know, and was there that night and at the session the next day. You know, and that was difficult too because he doesn't know what Paul wants, and so at first Tony Dorsey is kind of conducting him while he's drumming, you know, just telling him where the beats are, where the, you know, accents and things like that, you know, really just for a session or so, and then he got his sea legs, I guess you would call it.
It's interesting though, isn't it, that Paul ended up in the same position as he did in Lagos, Nigeria, in that Ginger Baker's there. So why don't you just use Ginger Baker on the record? Obviously, I think the way Alan described it in our first volume was Ginger was a little too dizzy for what Paul wanted.
Right.
But you know, he had Modelista, the drummer from the Meters, right there in the studio.
Right.
So he could have just said, well, hop behind the kit, let's just get on.
Yeah, the layers upon layers of information that can come out of just one story.
And he was such a modest guy, Tony, as well. He actually passed away, was it last year or the year before we found out? I mean, he'd say things like, you know, I didn't really do anything, it was all Paul. But you know, you've heard some of the horns on like Call Me Back Again, and Let It Go and things like that. Phenomenal. And the string section on, you know, all the string recordings were arranged by Tony.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. And he's saying, oh, you know, I didn't do anything. Really modest.
But it was all him?
It was all him, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And he also gave us some perspective on, you know, what it was like dealing with Paul and Linda, you know, like just like they're on tour and Linda says, well, where's your wife? And he said, well, you know, she's home, I'm here working. And she said, get her over here, you know, and they brought over his wife and I think one of his kids.
Yeah, I think there's a picture in our book actually of Linda on the tour bus. And she's with Stella,
Yeah.
and there's a little girl with her.
That's-
And we couldn't find out the girl's name, but that's Tony Dorsey's daughter.
It's his daughter?
Oh.
Wow, I guess Tony kind of got the Tony Dorsey got the credit. Tony Visconti never really got the recognition for all the arrangements, so I'm sure that doesn't sit well with Mr. Visconti.
Okay, so day 3 is over for me already. Unfortunately, I have to leave the fest early. So here I am at the PATH train. I'm gonna head back into Manhattan into Long Island. And it's been a great fest. And stay tuned for the videos. Very long escalator. I'm glad I don't have to walk down these stairs. Although I imagine going down is a lot easier than coming up. Okay, so here I am on the train heading home. It's been a tiring weekend, even though I didn't do the whole full weekend. It's probably about 2:40 or so right now in the afternoon, and I had to leave early, but it's for a good reason. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching the fest as all the activity and the excitement played out. And maybe I'll see you at the fest next year.